Good evening, you're watching To The Point. We come to you from Buxar in Bihar, and it's a good day to land in Bihar. The festivities where Chhath Puja is concerned are at its peak, and if cliches hold true, then the festival of Chhath is going to give way to the festival of an election in the state of Bihar. We're going to get you the latest coming up from Bihar and our ground reports with the team election dispatch on ground from Wednesday onwards. But we've got lots to discuss today. But first up, allow me to take you through the headlines. Election Commission announces Phase 2 of SIR in 12 states, all 2026 poll-bound states except Assam named in Phase 2 of SIR. Voter roll in these 12 states and union territories to be frozen from midnight. Acid attack on a 20-year-old student in Delhi. Accused was allegedly stalking the survivor for a long time. Meanwhile, accused wife claims that she was raped by survivor's father. Another shocking crime in the capital. UPSC aspirant murdered in Delhi by his live-in partner. Girlfriend killed him with the help of her ex-boyfriend. Accused is a forensic student. She staged a cylinder blast to camouflage the murder. Madhya Pradesh Minister Kailash Vijayvargiya triggers widespread outrage, suggests that 2 Australian women cricketers should learn a lesson after they were molested in Indore. One month after Karur stampede, TVK chief Vijay meets kin of victims, breaks down while meeting them. He urges the families to consider him as their own. Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah threatens to resign if centre's statehood promise stays unfulfilled. Chief Minister Abdullah dropped the bombshell while speaking exclusively to India Today.
There's a finite timeline.
There's a finite timeline, and that could very well be before your term ends. That's
Well,
why there is a timeline.
If it isn't before my term ends, then it's a,
then it's not a timeline.
Then it's a total waste of time.
What is the option? What is it? You're going to step down?
What?
All right, our top story comes in from Bihar, from the Simachal region. Viewers, you had Tejasvi Yadav, who was campaigning in Simachal. Hark all the way back to 2020, if you remember, this was the area which AIMIM, Asaduddin Owaisi, dented quite a bit, winning 5 seats where the Mahagathbandhan chances were concerned. This time around, you had the RJD chief, Tejasvi Yadav, taking nothing to chance. And where the Muslim vote bank is concerned, suggested that if the Mahagathbandhan is voted to power, then he will not allow the Waqf Amendment Act to be implemented in the state of Bihar. Of course, that led to a lot of charges coming in from the NDA of appeasement politics.
In battleground Bihar, Muslim vote bank is the crucial pawn. Both ruling and opposition alliances are pitching for their vote, one with promises while the other strikes through those promises. In the latest, the chief ministerial face of Mahagathbandhan pledged to scrap the Waqf Act in Bihar if his alliance comes to power.
चाहे कोई बिल ये लोग लाते हो, आप लोगों से हम कहना चाहते हैं, वक्त कानून का जो इन लोगों ने बनाया है, हमारी सरकार बनेगी तो उस बिल को हम लोग पूरे दान में फेंकने का काम करेंगे.
On Sunday, the RJD chief was campaigning in 4 Simachal assembly seats of Pranpur, Kocha Dhaman, Jokihart and Narpadganj. Muslims form a significant and influential electorate in the area with nearly 68% of the population count. A day before Tejasvi Yadav's comment, the RJD Youth Wing president and sitting MLC quoted controversy for threatening all supporters of the Waqf bill of consequences if Tejasvi Yadav comes to power.
तेजस्वी यादव जी मुख्यमंत्री बनेंगे सारे बिल फाड़ के फेंक दिए जाएंगे, चाहे वो वक्फ बिल हो, कोई बिल हो।
NDA was quick to tear into Mahagathbandhan's claims.
वो केंद्र सरकार के द्वारा पारित हो चुका है। अगर उसमें कोई संशोधन, कोई फर्दर चेंजेस आ सकते हैं तो उसमें आपको लोकसभा राज्यसभा में ही जाना होगा और आपके 3-4 सांसदों से वो नहीं हो पाएगा। आप लोगों को गुमराह करते हैं, आप मुसलमानों को आप गुमराह कर रहे हैं कि अरे हम फाड़ के फेंक देंगे। क्या हो जाएगा फाड़ के फेंक दोगे? बट इनको चाहिए कि मुसलमानों के कुछ 2-4 मठाधीश बने रहे, उनके साथ इनका समझौता चलता रहे और उसके माध्यम से ये मुसलमानों को अपना वोट बैंक बना के रखे।
Bihar has a total of 8,616 Waqf properties. Out of these, 1,750 come under the Bihar State Shia Waqf Board and 6,866 under the Bihar State Sunni Waqf Board. The combined area covered by these properties is approximately 1,98,354 acres. BJP alleged that Tejashwi Yadav's claims for writing off Waqf bill was akin to illegal land acquisition.
लालू परिवार, आरजेडी और सो कॉल्ड सेकुलर दल पूरी तरह से मुसलमानों के दुश्मन हैं। वे नहीं चाहते हैं कि मुसलमान बच्चे तालीम हासिल करें। वक्फ की प्रॉपर्टीज को 70 वर्षों तक यही आरजेडी के लोगों ने, कांग्रेस के लोगों ने लूटा, अपनी प्रॉपर्टीज बनाई।
Parliament passed the Waqf Amendment Act in April this year. In September, the Supreme Court temporarily stayed provisions granting district collectors wide powers over Waqf properties and requiring 5 years of practicing Islam to create a Waqf. The court also capped the number of non-Muslims on the Central Waqf Council and state Waqf boards. In poll-bound Bihar, Waqf is once again at the center of debate to capture the minority vote. With Piyush Mishra in Patna, Bureau Report, India Today.
My colleague Maria Shakil caught up with Tejaswi Yadav in Himachal where he was campaigning and asked him on the charges of appeasement of a certain community. Listen in.
ये बीजेपी के लोग अभी कुछ दिन पहले ट्रोल कर रहे थे कि 18% वालों को जो है डेप्यूटी चीफ मिनिस्टर नहीं, यानी जब अति पिछड़े के बेटे का हम लोगों ने डेप्यूटी चीफ मिनिस्टर अनाउंस किया तो बीजेपी के पेट में दर्द होने लगा। और यही बीजेपी ट्रोल करा रही है, जिनको ये कहते हैं पाकिस्तान चले जाओ, जिनको ये कहते हैं घुसपैठिया, आज उनकी बात ये कर रहे हैं। तो बीजेपी की भी चिंता को हम लोग दूर कर देंगे।
चलिए, आपने कहा कि तो अनाउंसमेंट का हम इंतजार करते हैं।
That's Tejaswi Yadav campaigning in the Himachal region, speaking to my colleague Maria, and facing charges of appeasement of a particular community. We're going to continue to get you more, but let's quickly dip in on the latest that's coming in from the state of Bihar and the politics concerned there. At one end, you have the Congress facing the Jan Nayak charge. On the other, you have Chirag Paswan, who is campaigning finally coming up and supporting the face of Nitish Kumar as the chief ministerial face where the NDA is concerned. The battle for Bihar's political legacy has turned bitter over the Jan Nayak tag. The Congress has projected Rahul Gandhi as Bihar's new Jan Nayak, invoking the memory of socialist icon Karpuri Thakur. The BJP has hit back sharply, calling it a title theft by what it described as the Nayak of corruption. In a major show of unity within the NDA, LJP chief Chirag Paswan has publicly backed Nitish Kumar as the alliance's chief ministerial face. Day after Prime Minister Modi endorsed Nitish for another term, Paswan said, "My MLAs will vote to make Nitish Kumar chief minister," adding that the NDA is much stronger and more united this time. Paswan's endorsement comes after a meeting with Nitish Kumar, signalling the internal rift within the alliance may have settled. As election fever peaks, the BJP has cracked the whip on indiscipline. The party's Bihar unit expelled 6 leaders, including sitting Khalgaon MLA Pawan Yadav for anti-party activities. Other expelled include Sunny Yadav, Shravan Kushwaha, Uttam Chaudhary, Maruti Nandan Maruti and Pawan Chaudhary. All have been suspended from the party's primary membership. The move signals the BJP's zero-tolerance approach and what they call to dissent. The Congress has announced a list of 40 star campaigners for the first phase of Bihar Assembly elections. The list includes Mallikarjun Kharge, Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi, Kanhaiya Kumar and independent MP Pappu Yadav. The lineup underlines the Congress's push to energize the Mahagathbandhan campaign as the contest with the NDA intensifies. Meanwhile, back where the national capital is concerned, Chhath Puja politics only peaks, where you have the NDA and the Aam Aadmi Party now in the opposition trading charges on the cleanliness of the Yamuna. If you remember, viewers, you had the BJP who had taken on the Aam Aadmi Party last time around when the Aam Aadmi Party was in power on a dirty, filthy Yamuna. Well, all that has happened right now is the positions of the Aam Aadmi Party and the BJP have changed, with the BJP now incumbent, but the Yamuna remains as dirty.
Chhath Puja is here and so is the politics over it. Tensions flared in Delhi between the BJP government, led by Chief Minister Rekha Gupta, and the opposition Aam Aadmi Party over the cleanliness of the Yamuna River. Chief Minister Rekha Gupta defended her administration, highlighting sewage treatment upgrades and ongoing efforts to clean the river.
दिल्ली भर में सीवर की पाइपलाइन डलना, दिल्ली भर में एसटीपी बनाना, डिसेंट्रलाइज एसटीपी बनाना, तभी तो यमुना साफ होगी। कोई एक दिन का काम थोड़ी ना है कि मैं आते ही कहूँ कि हाँ मैंने छड़ी घुमा दी और यमुना जी साफ हो गई। नहीं भाई, समय लगेगा। अभी तो पिछली सरकारों के किए हुए कर्मों को ही हम, जो इतनी बुरी तरह से बिखरा हुआ था, उसको ही समेटने में लगे हैं।
Aam Aadmi Party Delhi Chief Saurabh Bhardwaj accused the BJP of building artificial ghats and misleading the devotees over cleanliness of the Yamuna, claiming the ruling party was politicizing the festival ahead of the Bihar elections.
गरीब अगर उसके छोटे छोटे बच्चे इस पानी को पिएंगे तो आप सोचिए वो कितने बीमार होंगे। टाइफाइड होगा, कॉलरा होगा, हो सकता है कोई मर भी जाए। तो हमें सिर्फ हम रेखा गुप्ता जी को और वीरेंद्र सचदेवा जी को बताना चाहते हैं, ये एक सीरियस पॉलिटिक्स का समय है। आप ये फर्जीवाड़ा बंद कीजिए।
The BJP, however, dismissed these allegations as baseless and politically motivated, with Chief Minister insisting that these were genuine environmental initiatives, not a publicity stunt, unlike in previous years when the scene remained unchanged, with devotees offering prayers in frothy, polluted waters.
यमुना जी पे जो छठ पूजा पिछली सरकारों ने बंद कर दी थी, प्रतिबंध लगा दिया था, बड़े बड़े बोर्ड टांग दिए थे, कुछ लोग जो यमुना किनारे पूजा करने आए उन पे केस दर्ज कर दिया था। इस बार नया दिल्ली के लिए ये है कि एक दिव्य छठ, एक भव्य छठ दिल्ली वालों के लिए हमने तैयार की है।
India Today took a boat ride to track Yamuna cleanup firsthand.
तस्वीरें मैं आपको यमुना के बीच की भी दिखाना चाहूँगा कि यहाँ वीड हार्वेस्टर मशीन भी जो है वो चलाई जा रही है। पिछले कई दिनों से देखा जा रहा है कि वीड हार्वेस्टर मशीन जो है यमुना में पानी की सफाई कर रही है। आपको मैं दिखाना चाहूँगा कि खरपतवार हो और चाहे मोटा कचरा हो, यहाँ यमुना के बीच से इकट्ठा कर कर इस मशीन के जरिए छांटा जा रहा है।
As the city celebrates Chhath Puja on the banks of the Yamuna, the river cleanup continues to stir debate. With Anjana Om Kashyap and Anmol Bali in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
Right now, let's cut across to the latest that is coming in from the state of Madhya Pradesh with the latest shocking incident from a minister in the cabinet where Madhya Pradesh is concerned, Mr. Kailash Vijaywargiya. What he has said is shameful, where it came down to the molestation of Australian women cricketers. Listen in.
A remark by Madhya Pradesh Minister Kailash Vijaywargiya has sparked outrage across party lines and embarrassment at a time when India is hosting the Women's Cricket World Cup. After two Australian women cricketers were stalked and one of them allegedly molested near their hotel earlier this week, The senior BJP leader, instead of focusing on the crime, chose to put the onus also on the cricketers.
कोई सा भी खिलाड़ी हो कहीं पर भी जाता है, जैसे हम लोग भी बाहर जाते हैं तो कम से कम एक लोकल आदमी को तो बताते ही हैं, क्योंकि क्रिकेट खिलाड़ी का बड़ा क्रेज है। मैंने फुटबॉल खिलाड़ियों के कपड़े फटते हुए देखे, तो कभी कभी खिलाड़ियों को भी अपनी लोकप्रियता का एहसास नहीं होता।
While the accused Akil Khan has since been arrested, Vijay Vargiya's shocking remark drew fierce criticism. What could have been a strong anti-harassment message has instead turned into what many see as victim blaming.
शर्मनाक, घटिया और घटिया छोटा शब्द। एक मंत्री के रूप में ये कानून व्यवस्था का जो फेलियर है, तो क्या आप चाहते हो विदेश से अब कोई यहाँ ना आए? उनका दोष क्या था कि सिर्फ उन्होंने आपकी सुरक्षा, आपके कानून व्यवस्था पर विश्वास किया और आपको यहाँ सबक सिखा दिया।
The incident of stalking and molestation of women cricketers has harmed the country's image. The minister's comment has only added to the embarrassment. Bureau Report, India Today.
What is truly shocking is that till now there has been absolutely no action that has been taken against this minister. It's not the first time he said something this derogatory, this pervasive and this misogynistic. What has also happened, viewers, is interimly you've had the Australian cricket team's handle on the social media platform X, where they had tweeted about the incident, deleting all their tweets because they say that they've been facing constant harassment ever since they actually posted about the incident. Shocking to say the least. No action, nothing coming in where the incumbent government of Madhya Pradesh is concerned, or the party right now. I want to cut across to our two guests this evening, Ms. Brinda Adige and Ms. Lalita Kumara Mangalam, former chairperson NCW. Brinda Adige, women rights activist. I want to cut across first to Ms. Lalita Kumara Mangalam. Ma'am, you've been part of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and
Yes.
I'm a little appalled today that there has been no action that has been taken against Mr. Vijay Vargiya. Absolutely nothing. Stone cold silence coming in from the Madhya Pradesh government as well as the central party.
I'm as appalled as you are, Preeti. At the very least, Mr. Vijay Vargiya should be made to apologize for the people whose feelings he's hurt. And this is not just the cricketers. When you're in a position of power or influence, you really need to watch what you're saying. When I was young, my father used to say, bite your tongue. I think more often than not, our politicians must learn that when you are talking on sensitive topics, please do not just rattle off whatever you think will get you out of hot water. In this case, I found his remarks not only insensitive and very, very patriarchal, and victim shaming. These are the normal words we use. A politician who has been elected to rule, whether the ruling party or the opposition or any other party, must understand that a huge number of people have put their trust in him. Many of those people are women who have voted for him. Imagine the disappointment and the fear now, or the apprehension that girls may have in that part of the country, Madhya Pradesh, that a minister has said something like this. Couldn't he have stopped with saying that, yes, this should not have happened? Victim shaming is ridiculous. It's the usual, what we say, cover that people use to hide the faults in the system. In this case, whoever did the abuse of these young girls, he's been arrested, but that's not the point. When a man like Kailash Vijay Vargiya, who is such an influential person in the government, comes up with an extremely I don't know how to say it, ridiculous, patriarchal, extremely sometimes frightening statement to people, to girls who are walking on the road in perfectly, we have the freedom to do so. This is a democracy. At the very least, Mr. Vijay Vargiya should apologize, not just to the two Australian football players who were assaulted, but to all the women who have been hurt by what he said. More than hurt, scared. I can't use the word I want to use now on TV, but really scared. Even women like me, I have a 12-year-old granddaughter. Somebody turns around and tells me if she's walking down the street in her school uniform, which is basically a skirt and a blouse, that she's dressed inappropriately, therefore she has been abused, I would probably slap that man. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm in a position to be able to talk so strongly and perhaps follow up on it. But most women are not. So politicians have a responsibility, and in this case, it's a shame that he belongs to a ruling party and has got away, seems to have got away with it. At the very least, I request the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh to ask or make Kailash Vijayvargiya apologize, or at least explain and apologize why he said what he said.
It's not just about an apology. I think strong action now needs to be taken because this individual, this man, who's got gutter level thinking, has gotten away way too long. This is not the first time Kailash Vijayvargiya has said something this derogatory and this sexist, this misogynist. And he is a man who occupies a very powerful office where it comes down to the cabinet where Madhya Pradesh is concerned. So Brinda Adige, my question is, because, you know, ultimately it gets down to between one government or the other that your molestation is bigger than my molestation. But having said that today, if one doesn't hear not condemnation but action coming in, what's the message that we are sending across, not just in our country but internationally?
Not only condemnation, but like Mrs. Lalita said, he requires to be made to apologize to all Indians because of his sexist, misogynistic, regressive, retrograde statement. All of us have to hang our heads in shame. He made that statement that these women should have reported to the administration, told somebody, and if they are going out. Does he not know that it is his responsibility, his government's responsibility, the state's responsibility to ensure at least 10-kilometer radius from that hotel, there is patrolling that is increased, that there is more security? Because we have people from abroad and they are playing in our country, in the state where this man has been elected into power. Instead of doing and saying all of those kind of things and being, feeling sorry that something like this happened in Indore, this man is going around blaming women just like he has been doing all along. His party leaders also must hang their heads in shame, because this is the kind of elected representative our citizens have elected into power. These are guys who are making our laws and policies for protection of women, for protection of children. And we are a country who always pride ourselves that the guests who come into our country are like gods. So we treat them with respect, with dignity. How dare he make such a statement? And like you mentioned, he may get away, and so it is important to set an example. I'm hoping that my Prime Minister and his party leaders...
But, Ms. Kumaram, I want to bring you back into this conversation, because as much as it that we can keep delving into and talk about, we should have strengthened security around, the hotel that they were in. They should have been patrolling, and they should have been. There's nothing wrong with what Brinda Adige is saying. But this is a true reality check on what young girls face every day on the streets of India, small towns, big cities, and this is the mindset of our ruling class, because this team was an Australian team. The incident was highlighted by them. This is an everyday situation for a young girl walking out alone.
I agree, and I don't think it's always just young girls. Unfortunately, in this country, eve teasing is...
I agree.
Sorry? Unfortunately, in this country...
I agree, ma'am. You're right. It's not just young girls. It could be any woman.
No, and any ruling party, regardless of their political beliefs, etc., needs to make sure that, at the very least, as Brinda Adige said, when we have guests, these are guests of honor. They've come to play a tournament. They should have been provided security. It's not the job of the guest to say, I'm going to shop or going for a walk or whatever else. It's the job of the security to make sure that they are there to protect them when they need to be protected. Yes, I agree. It is a crying shame that in this country, even today, for all the big talk across the, across parties, states, etc., women still are at such severe risk. Women, young girls, etc., are at severe risk, right from birth, I think, up to the point that they pass away. But all of us know it. So any party that is in power, regardless, must make sure, and here I say it again, I agree what Brinda said, must make sure that the security is in place. I'm not saying generally we need not, we should, we do not need to step up our security of girls and women in this country. I'm saying in this particular situation, unfortunately, and it is my party that's in power there, so I say this with a great deal of regret and shame. Unfortunately, they did not have security, enough adequate security in place. These are everyday happenings, as you pointed out, Preeti, and everybody knows it. So a state government needs to make sure that when they have an international tournament where women are playing, those women, their security is adequately taken care of. It is a fault of the government, and when a minister of that government, a senior minister, turns around and makes a statement where he more or less absolves the government of blame and actually tries to victim shame, then it's not only deeply regretful, it's also, like I said, it's very frightening. Where is the security for women, for all the shows we have and come and, agitate on TV, for all the work that is done by so many women across the last 70 years or so? Where is the security for women? Over and over again, all over again, we go through this in a month at least 2 or 3 times. I'm saying this on some issue or the other, whether it's dowry, whether it's eve teasing, whether it's molestation, whether it's rape. We just don't seem to be able to move forward. There is something intrinsically wrong in the system. We need to take a very deep look at the system and, with rose-colored spectacles off. We need to look at ourselves, not just always find blame with the other side. We need to all sit down and make sure that that at least today or from as soon as possible, the systemic changes are also affected. Otherwise, this pathetic, absolutely horrible story will just keep repeating itself.
But, Brinda Adige, where is the collective outrage? Because that's always missing. The sheer fact that we haven't seen a cross-party line outrage on a comment as sexist, deeply misogynistic and troubling as this, that hasn't happened. It's not big enough right now for the government of Madhya Pradesh to actually take notice and condemn this statement, leave alone the party back in Delhi to actually take strong action against one of its own leaders.
You're absolutely right. There is no outrage from the government, but on the flip side, what this man stated just goes to show that no place is safe for women, certainly not the streets of Madhya Pradesh. And so he is reiterating and saying public spaces are not safe for women. So women don't come out onto the streets. And that is the most shameful statement reiterated by an elected representative. You're asking about public outrage on this particular case, but where is the outrage from the state government or from public when there are women and girls molested, sexually harassed, raped and murdered on a daily basis? There is no outrage because you have leaders of this nature who continue to make these retrograde, regressive statements, and so impunity continues. There is no fear of law. There is continuously statements being made even by the judiciary. You marry this person, write an essay, it is okay, boys will be boys, men will be men. We never pull up anybody. I'm not talking only about this minister, but I'm talking about elected representatives and political leaders across parties where we've always absolved them, never held them accountable for this kind of loose statements, neither by their parties, nor by the state, and sadly, not even by us citizens.
Right. I just want to take the last couple of minutes of your time, and I want to bring in Lalitha Kumaramangalam first and then Brinda Adige, because, what's the way ahead, Lalitha Kumaramangalam? And I'm not talking generically, but in this particular case, how does one ensure that it's not an apology that one needs, but strong action that one takes? And what I take great heart in today, Lalitha Kumaramangalam, is because you come from the Bharatiya Janata Party, and to say it for what it is commendable, which many of your party ilk are not doing so.
Preeti, this is not the time for me to pat myself on the back. I don't feel particularly nice about what happened at all. You know, most politicians have very big egos. To make the man apologize will be a big thing. Believe me, I'm a member of a political party. I know this extremely well. The state government must issue an apology. If Mr. Vijay Varghya does not do it himself, a senior person in the government of Madhya Pradesh must apologize not just to those particular girls, but may also say that it is not correct that such statements are made. Because unless we start with a public acceptance or a public apology, we are not going to go anywhere. Normally, most people don't like to apologize when they've made a mistake. But in this case, I think that's the first step. And moving forward, like I said, we need to look at the system, systemic problems we have. It's not a small job; it's a huge job, and it has to start somewhere in some state. I hope at least every time, like I say, I'm on TV at least 3 times a month talking about what has happened to women, something that should never have happened that happens. And it keeps happening over and over again, whether it is in Kashmir or Madhya Pradesh or Tamil Nadu or anywhere else. It's sort of repetitively, women keep getting abused, killed, raped, etc., etc. So we must sit down, and I think everybody needs to sit down together and look at systemic changes that have to be put in place.
I want to get in, yeah. Brinda Dighe to come in. Brinda Dighe, if you could encapsulate, because we can talk about how we're going to fix it, which never gets fixed because the issue quite remains the same, and there is absolute bizarre statements that are made time in and time again. But I'd bring you in this particular case, Brinda Dighe. How does one put enough pressure on the Madhya Pradesh government or on the party, which is the Bharatiya Janata Party, to actually take tangible action?
I think it is media channels like you who are the best to put that kind of a pressure. But that said, I think it is important that the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister show that there will be consequences if these kind of talk are continuously spewed by members from his party. And that consequences is not something that you're saying, okay, I'm going to take action against him. You have disciplinary clauses. You have guidelines within your party manifestos. And that is something you must put on place. You must not be afraid to put somebody where they are meant to be, so that you teach a lesson to others and say, such action, such behavior and derogatory speech against women citizens of our nation and guests who come into our nation is absolutely unacceptable. And that disciplinary action, they shouldn't be afraid to take against these people, because otherwise they always will keep getting away, because there's nobody who's going to register any other complaint against them. Even the Australian cricketers, somebody might say, oh, we are going to register an FIR or whatever. But it is the party's job, the state government's responsibility. Otherwise, who else will you hold accountable? Nobody is held accountable. And this kind of behavior will continue, and people, especially the perpetrators, will think, okay, why should I fear the law? Let's go on. So the state government of Madhya Pradesh, the chief minister, must put his foot down and ensure that disciplinary action is taken against this man within the party at least.
Right. Well, I appreciate both you ladies for joining us. Thank you there. Well, we on our end are going to do what we can, and that is 2 men are answerable today on why no action has been taken against Mr. Kailash Vijay Varghya. And that is Party President of the BJP, Mr. JP Nadda, and the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, Mr. Mohan Yadav. Thank you for joining us on this debate. Have you given yourself a time where statehood is concerned? That, okay, I'm going to be this.
I've given myself a time for occupying the office that I currently occupy.
What is that time?
Leave that. That's between me and the Almighty.
And the Almighty.
Yeah.
Well, you're not answerable to the Almighty. You're answerable to your people.
No, I definitely am. Well, I mean, sure. But
the
at
people
the moment,
have put you there.
Yeah, I mean, when I have to tell the people, they will know.
So you're saying...
I'm not going to give you sort of that
you
position
have already given
where you will stand behind me with a stopwatch.
No, you've already given it. So you've already told us that...
I've not told you. I mean, I've said there is a finite timeline.
There's a finite timeline,
Yeah.
and that could very well be before your term ends. That's
well,
why there is a timeline.
If it isn't before my term ends, then it's
then it's not a timeline.
Then it's a total waste of time.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that you've given yourself a finite timeline.
If we don't get statehood.
If you don't get statehood.
Yeah.
By next year then? Is there...
Now stop. I mean, you're not going to get the answer. So you can find as many ways as you like to ask the question. And I will continue
Okay, fine. I won't ask you the time frame of it. But what is the option? What is it? You're going to step down?
Again.
When the time comes. Whenever that time is.
Exactly.
That is between you and your maker. So when will you step down? Is that the...
What is the other option? I'm hardly going to step up.
Okay, so you will step down. I have to ask you this. I have to verbalize it.
I think when I tell you that if things continue the way they are, it is unlikely that I will be in this office when the term of this government ends. I think that is as clear as it can be.
All right, so that was the Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister who had a rather honest, candid chat with me and practically stated that he has set himself a finite timeline if restoration of statehood does not happen where his state Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, then he will step down. He didn't give us when that time frame is, but is he issuing an ultimatum to the centre is the question we are asking our two panelists this evening. Joining me, R.S. Pathania, BJP MLA, Advocate Ifra Jan, spokesperson, National Conference, NC. I want to cut across to Irfa Jan first. And Irfa Jan, is there now an ultimatum by the Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister that restores statehood, or else I step down? Of course, we don't know what that timing of stepping down is, but there seems to be an ultimatum that was issued.
You see, Ms. Preeti, there should have been no need for any such statements given the fact that the BJP government, top leaders of the BJP government had themselves promised both on the floor of the parliament and in the Supreme Court of India that they would restore the status of statehood to Jammu and Kashmir as soon as possible. Now, when that as soon as possible is, we don't know, because it's now been, It's now been 6 years since that has happened. But some questions, I would want to reframe this debate, because a lot of people ask this: when are you going to resign? Are you going to resign? There is a fundamental question I have, and which is, who does the onus of resignation lie on? Does the onus of resignation lie on somebody who has fulfilled every constitutional and democratic obligation, or does it lie on those who failed in theirs? Who is fulfilled the obligation and who has failed their obligations? Umar Saab has not failed any obligation. He was not the person who made any such comment in the Supreme Court of India. When the Solicitor General of India goes to the Supreme Court and he says, we cannot restore statehood because of attacks like Pahalgam, because of the law and order situation in Jammu and Kashmir, then the second question I would like to ask is, who does the law and order rest with? It rests with the honorable central government. So why is there this narrative of shame that is being crafted to in a way pressurize Umar Sahab and an elected government to resign by constantly asking, kab resign kar rahe ho, kyun nahi kar rahe ho? Does the shame lie on us? Does it lie on the elected?
And it's something that he said himself. What is the pressure on him? He could have said that I'm not, that there is no timeline. He himself said I've set myself a timeline.
BJP government, unfortunately, in our country, uses every trick from their hat to ensure that opposition leaders are not allowed to work, whether it's the ED raids, whether it is conversion of union territories into conversion of full-fledged states into union territories, and then in a way making their working impossible. So it's not just Umar Saab who's now being asked to resign because he's just tired of how he's been made to work. You have to look at this as a larger pattern of how the BJP has ensured that no opposition chief minister in any way is allowed to work. We see the Tamil Nadu bills which are lying with the governor for years, where the Supreme Court had to intervene. We see the ED raids, and now we see a situation where they refuse to let the UT elected government work.
I'm just going to cut across to R.S. Pathania. Okay, I'm going to cut across to R.S. Pathania, but I want to make it very clear because it was something that he said entirely. There was no pressure on him to confirm. It's a valid question to ask him whether he set himself a timeline on the basis of which, if he thinks that it wasn't worth his while, because he said he only fought that election on the basis of statehood being delivered. So, and he did say that he has himself set in a deadline of sorts. Now, he didn't give us what the time frame was. But I want to bring in the BJP MLA here, Mr. R.S. Pathania. Mr. Pathania, the fact is, statehood was something that was promised and was to be delivered by the government. The Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister makes it very clear that was the promise on which an election was announced and fought. And after that, it's been now over a year, and yet the promise of statehood stands unfulfilled. You're practically forcing the hand of an incumbent Chief Minister who, for all practical purpose, is ruling without power where the state of Jammu and Kashmir is concerned.
Yes, Preeti, first of all, a very good evening to everybody on board. So, my point to remain very small, very precise, very to the point, that politics of double-speak, duplicity and dubiousness, the traits of National Conference in Omar Abdullah. But the now,
sir, there's an audio problem. Mr. Pathania, there seems to be an audio problem. I want to cut across back to the NC spokesperson and Irfa Jan. What seemingly the BJP MLA suggests that this is all double speak, where your party is concerned.
When it comes to, I actually laughed when he talked about double speak, when the word double speak comes from the BJP government, because nobody knows what it means to double speak better than the BJP. It is the BJP that on the floor of the parliament promised that they would restore the statehood, and we have not seen any signs of it yet. It's the BJP that on an affidavit that this.
But Irfa Jan, it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year where the state of Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. You've gone through Pahalgam, you've seen the series of drone attacks after that, and then you have seen floods in Jammu and Kashmir. You need a sense of security and stability to bring statehood back. That is the argument which has been given by the centre.
If that is the argument which is being given by the centre, let me respond to it. Number one, it's basically saying that it's Pakistan that will in a way decide when statehood will be given back to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. It is not something we should be giving to Pakistan. It's not something Pakistan should be allowed to determine. It is this country, it is our forces, it is our constitution that should be allowed to determine these questions. And most importantly, it's the word of our Prime Minister in the Honorable Supreme Court of India and the Honorable Supreme Court of India's own judgment that should be allowed to determine when these things take place. Number two, they say Pahalgam has happened and terror attacks have happened. Please tell me when the Pahalgam attack happened, who is responsible for law and order? So what we are saying here, just a second, what we are saying here is because the central government was in charge of the law and order situation when a terror attack like Pahalgam happened, therefore the central government should be allowed to stay in charge of security and law and order. I mean, you are basically
telling the government for the lack of a line right now with the BJP MLA, the PDP, Sajjad Lone, all call this a nicely orchestrated fixed match between the NC and the BJP, where both sides are comfortable and the public posturing continues.
You see, the PDP and Sajjad Lone both happen to be BJP allies. Both were a part of the BJP government in 2014. So for anybody to come and ask, I mean, I am ready to take this argument from anybody but not the 2014 allies of the BJP government when they call us allies. If we had to be allies with the BJP government...
You've been part of the NDA.
I think we have repeatedly said that there was...
You've been an ally of the BJP.
I think we were allies of Vajpayee's BJP. We've never been allies of Narendra Modi ji's BJP. A political party changes its ideology over time, and we've also seen how the BJP has changed its ideology over time. I mean, at one point, the National Conference was at loggerheads with the Congress. It's not at loggerheads with the Congress now. I mean, it was the Congress that used to bring down our governments. That's not the situation right now. So political parties change. change, ideologies change. But I want to come back to the question of statehood. When they say, oh, we can't give statehood because Pahalgam, I think the question we should be asking is which government is controlling law and order, and do we basically give an incentive to the same
All right,
government?
Irfa Jan, I think we have the BJP spokesperson back, the BJP MLA. Let me bring back Mr. Pathania if his line is fine. Mr. Pathania, these were all promises that were made that need to be delivered. Like I asked you, you're forcing the hand of an incumbent chief minister who was promised statehood, and that was on the basis on which he fought an election and has been now ruling without power for 1 year.
Preeti, my point remains that governance cannot be hostage to such a melodrama. National Conference has been elected to power. They need to decode the moral, ethical and political impulse of Jammu and Kashmir. But fact remains that this government is a non-starter till yet. None of the guarantees which they promised in the manifesto they are able to fulfill. Even daily governance they are not able to do. There had been a very, very harmful, very, very record that landslides and rains have lashed Jammu and Kashmir. They are not able to give relief to the people. They are not able to give 5 marlas of land to the people, to the houseless people. So my very sweet and a simple suggestion to National Conference remains that you please govern, you come on. These tantrums, these gimmickries, window dressings or shadow boxing won't yield any result. Had they be able to yield something, Jammu and Kashmir by now would have turned into a happy oasis of a state. So where is the question about statehood? I always say on local channel, on everywhere, and on the floor of the assembly also, that Jammu and Kashmir is a state. Jammu and Kashmir shall remain a state. Once the Prime Minister, once the Home Minister, from the ramparts of the Red Fort, from the podium of the Lok Sabha, they have assured the nation and the people of Jammu and Kashmir again that Jammu and Kashmir shall become a state. So, but the point remains that when the time will come, that time will also show.
Will that happen? When will that happen?
Security and stability are two paramount considerations for Jammu and Kashmir. And everybody understands that during this intervening period also, not
okay, I'm going to leave it at that.
Not Bharatiya Janata Party say.
Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I appreciate both of you for joining us. Thank you there. I want to quickly move on. Appreciate it, sir. Appreciate it. We've run out of time, and I wanted to, cut across to this tribute and also what was troubling actor, comedian, great performer, Mr. Satish Shah.
Veteran actor Satish Shah has died of complications post a kidney transplant. He was 74. His friend actor Sachin Pilgaonkar revealed in a post that he underwent a kidney transplant. An end-stage kidney transplant is a major procedure that requires kidney transplant from a healthy person to the patient. It can lead to complications in senior citizens.
In surgical fitness, many of these patients who are elderly are already having comorbidities like diabetes, blood pressure, and other age-related changes of brain and heart. And because of this, the checkup that we do before surgery called pre-anesthetic checkup, they tend to fail in that. And their weak hearts sometimes are unable to take surgery. So surgical candidates are very few, and this is a major hurdle.
India is seeing an alarming rate of chronic kidney disease to the tune of 13% or so. Doctors say that this disease, earlier seen in the elderly population, is now being seen in the younger population. Heat stress that causes dehydration, diabetes, uncontrolled blood pressure, high BP. These are some of the contributing factors that lead to chronic kidney disease, renal failure. Also, making some changes, simple changes in your lifestyle, doctors indicate will go a long way in preventing this disease. Identifying the first symptoms also are extremely important, is what doctors say.
You can lose up to 90% of your kidney function without any symptoms. Okay? So once the critical point is reached, when the kidney failure reaches a point when it starts showing symptoms like swelling, generalized swelling in the body or swelling in the legs, swelling in the face, decreased urinary output, a lot of nausea and vomiting type of symptoms. By that time, already there is established kidney failure.
These steps can reduce the changes of kidney failure in the long run. With Sneha Mordani, Bureau Report, India Today.